Instead of the term, how can we love ourselves more, I'd like to ask, how can we accept ourselves more? That in the way most of us have been socialized, the way in which a child learns, the initial learning, is that the parent is under pressure to socialize the child, to make the child socially functional. And in doing that, they emotionally, whether they intend to or not, reward and punish the child for behaviors. And the result is that when that starts very early, before there is a lot of reasoning process between the parent and the child develops certain emotional feelings that certain ways it is in its natural state are not acceptable. And the result is some feelings of unworthiness or inadequacy or something in most human beings as the result of socialization. Very few people ever come through socialization unscathed in some way or other. I mean, that's not an unfair statement, I don't think. So in a way you could see that ego or personality is in a way built upon, and that's where Freud understood it. He saw that the repression of id, or impulse life, because of the way the society has to deal with a child's impulses to get it to be socialized, usually is left with a feeling that somehow I'm bad, I have these things that are not acceptable. So then you build this social structure, and often what you end up with is a personality that's constantly looking to the world and other people. Do you approve of me? Do you like me? Am I good enough? Am I acceptable to you? So that you're constantly using your life experiences as a way to disprove a basic negative feeling about yourself. So many psychological systems, like Freud's system, for example, works primarily with negative going to zero. That's the domain that you work with. Right behind that is where the spiritual dimension begins, and that's a part that looks at the universe and just sees it as it is. See, when you've got a negative thing, the opposite, when you're trying to undo it, you could undo it by emphasizing the positive. Like if you don't like yourself, you could emphasize, I love myself, which is how do we love ourselves more is the question. Or we could say, let's go behind love and hate and find a place where we merely acknowledge ourselves, where we just allow our humanity. And we hear that there is negativity in us, and there is inadequacy, and we allow ourselves. And the word that I have come up with, that I'm finding most comfortable to work with, is the word appreciation. You find dimensions constantly judging and equating. Am I as good as? Am I equal to? Am I as good a mother? Am I as beautiful a woman? Am I as effective a worker? Am I whatever it is, whatever dimension. And you get caught in constantly living in a judging realm. And if you start to practice seeing people as trees, I don't mean in the You know, in the sense of just appreciating what they are, including yourself. You're just starting to appreciate yourself. Appreciate your humanity. Like, I had always assumed the way to God was to deny your humanity and embrace your divinity. And then I realized that the way to truth might be through acknowledging the fullness of where I found myself to be, which was my humanity and my divinity. And not wallow in it, but acknowledge it. And not reverence it or judge it. Just appreciate it. Just allow it. Allow my humanity. So I have gotten to the point now where I am what I am much more, and some people like it and some people don't like it, and if they like it, that's their problem, and if they don't like it, that's their problem. I don't take it all on myself. As I started to allow myself to be human more, just allowed what I am, things changed much faster in me. Things fell away more quickly. It was as if I was locked into a model which was based on that negativity, that dislike of myself. And once I just allowed that I am human with all the foibles, things started to flow and I could feel change occurring in myself. And then I would start to experience my own beauty. And it frightened me because it was so dissonant and discrepant from the model that I had cultivated of myself over the years, that I had to do good in order to be beautiful. And the idea that I just am, that what is, when you look at a tree or a rock or a river, it is in its own way beautiful. You look at decay, it is beautiful. I know Laura Huxley, who's a very dear friend, in her kitchen, she has these jars over the sink, and she takes old beet greens and orange peels and things and sticks them in water in these long, beautiful pharmaceutical jars. And there are these beautiful decay formations and mold, and it's really garbage. And we look at it, and it's absolutely beautiful. There's absolute beauty in that. And I've begun to expand my awareness to be able to look at the universe as it is and see what is called the horrible beauty of it. I mean, I look at my hand and it's decaying, and it's beautiful and horrible at the same moment, and I just live with that, and with that I start to see the beauty in it. So we're talking about appreciating what is, not loving yourself as opposed to not liking yourself, but allowing yourself. And as you allow, it changes. That's about, I think that gets behind the polarities. Once you see that all of the forms of dualistic experiencing, of collecting experiences, is all just relatively real, it loosens the power of all those things over you. They don't compel you as much. And at first, when that starts to happen, you get a little anxious because it feels like the richness of life is dying for you. And you're beginning to experience the statement, lest ye die, ye cannot be reborn. You begin to feel death around you. emptiness of things that previously were extremely pleasant to you. And it's a little disconcerting. And some of people that are on this journey would like to say, stop, I think I'd like to go back. I would think I would like to milk it for a little more. I'd like to have just a little more of the pleasure, of the rushes, of the romantic drama. Because as long as you identify with your separateness, you are involved, for example, in romantic love. Do you love me? How much do you love me? Do you love me enough? Will you always love me? I mean, it's infinitely milkable for drama. You huff and you puff and you make believe it matters even though you know that it doesn't. And that's the one that's very uncomfortable to most people. I was in Hawaii recently and I was trying to relate the cosmic giggle to suffering, which is an interesting challenge because suffering seems so real and heavy, and how do you giggle about that? Most of us think we're only free when we break out of forms. But as long as you're in an incarnation, there is no way out of form. You are in form. So the question is, can you be free in form? For a lot of us, we thought freedom was being able to not work, for example. Freedom had to do with external freedom. It had to do with political systems. It had to do with economics. It had to do with how you spent your time. But if you are around affluent people at all, you begin to see that that kind of freedom is not free. And that when we're talking about real freedom, we're talking about the freedom of awareness from identification with thought. And do everything you do every day without getting lost in it. So that there is all the feelings and emotions and the play, but it has the quality of play, or as like Hermann Hesse talks about it, as a game. Or a dance, the dance of life. Live your life in such a way that it's dance or play. So at first, you take on little things that you can sort of keep your consciousness in. For example, I go into meditation for periods of time, and I get very quiet inside, and then I come out into the world, and something comes along, and it doesn't grab me. It comes at me, and I see it. Like people's projections are interesting. When your mind is quiet, you see the way other minds project. Even as we are going through these little projective dances, we are recognizing one another behind the dance. And for you to see behind that veil and see that your child is just another being, just like you, just happens to be a little one. And that you have on this plane a function. You have a biological function, a social function, but don't get lost in it. Stay in the consciousness right behind it also, but fulfill it. That doesn't mean you say, oh, come on, you're not my kid, because as you allow more and more planes of reality, it's like baklava. It's just So many planes, so many levels of stuff. It's so thick. It's so rich. The moment itself is enough. In the most profound sense that I can grasp, it is the journey of awakening, in which all of our life experiences are the grist for the mill of our awakening. And the awakening occurs as the mind becomes quiet, as awareness no longer is pulled by each thought. And as the thoughts less grab the awareness, the veil thins around the heart. And one experiences that quality. The heart is not the emotional heart and not the physiological heart, but the heart that the Chinese call the sin, or the heart mind. That deepest part of one's being. That suddenly becomes available. One begins to rest in it. As that quieting occurs, you are less caught in the models in your mind that have expectations about the future, that have clingings to your past, and you are more open to the fullness of this moment. This moment doesn't deny the past or the future. But if you watch the way your mind works when you're identified with the thoughts, even as you're having your supper, you're planning for your dessert. Even as you're having your dessert, you're planning for your evening. Even as you're having your evening, you're worrying about tomorrow. Even as you're doing one act, you're already in the next act. To pull your awareness back from the time-binding nature of mind allows you to be fully here. To be fully here, am I happy? Yes, I'm happy. I'm happy because it's spring. I'm happy because people are having babies that are bringing joy into their lives. I'm happy because flowers are blooming. I'm happy for a myriad reasons. Am I sad? Yes, I am sad. Because every 45 seconds, a child is dying needlessly from hunger. I'm sad because there is so much inhumanity among humans to each other and to other species. I am sad because there's so much fear. In this moment, I am both happy and sad. As long as you try to stay in the world of polarities, happy, sad, dark, light, positive, negative, good, evil, you cannot experience the richness of the moment. The richness of the moment is the one that lies just behind the two.